glow to bring you the constant variety of sport.
The man is incredible.
The thrill of victory.
Absolutely the best.
And the agony of defeat.
Oh, look at him go! Oh, baby. Oh, no.
This is ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Welcome to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the motor racing capital of the world, where we are here for Pole Day. And our Indy Pole telecast presented by Capital One, but unfortunately, we are not going to be running any cars today. The official word has just come down that it has been canceled for today. We'll try it again tomorrow. The rain just keeps coming in waves, and the temperature is about 49 degrees, and that's not warm enough. Let's get you caught up in case you're just joining us. Weren't with us earlier today over on ESPN2. Back on May 7th, opening day of the track, the Andretti family got to do something that most families would only dream about. All three together on the track at the same time in their race cars. And there was Mario, Michael, and the youngest 19-year-old Marco Andretti. Who's been the fastest so far this month? Well, you don't have to look any further than the number 6 car of Sam Hornish. His best lap, 226.798 miles an hour. And it was deja vu for Buddy Rice. Last year, same corner, turn 2, he had a crash, put him out of the 500. This year, on Wednesday, he hits the wall in turn 2, but luckily this time the car is damaged, but he only has bumps and bruises. Let me bring in Scott Goodyear and Rusty Wallace as we take a look at the practice speeds. And again, it still seems to be a familiar tune that we've heard through the first 3 races, guys. Target Chip Ganassi Racing versus Team Penske, Scott.
Yes, a year ago they actually were not up on the top of the charts, but now that everybody has a Honda engine, their disadvantage is no longer part of that program with the Toyota. So right now, those guys have been going fast. Certainly a contender for the front row.
Ganassi, Team Penske, they look very, very strong. Danica Patrick, we've been paying a lot of attention to her, Marty and Scott. I haven't seen any big numbers out of her quite yet, but there has not been much practice at all here at the Speedway.
In fact, it'll be the second day in a row where we have had absolutely no cars out on the racetrack. There you see the rest of the teams that have taken times. You can see their speeds over on the right-hand side as the top 21 cars are all within 1 second of each other through practice. Now let's get the update on what the official policy is going to be for tomorrow. And for that, we're going to turn over to Jerry Punch. He's with John Lewis.
Well, actually, Marty, John Lewis is here also, but Brian Barnhart has moved back in after a meeting with Tony George. And Brian, you guys made a gallant effort today. President, Chief Operating Officer of the Indy Racing League, trying to get this in, but the rain just kept coming.
Well, and it hasn't stopped yet. So it's been a difficult day for a second year in a row, and we're going to look forward to a good day tomorrow and try and do positions 1 through 22 tomorrow if weather permit it.
What's the schedule like for tomorrow? What about practice, and when will you roll the first car out to qualify?
We're going to practice the first half of the qualifying draw from 9:30 to 10. We'll do the second half of the qualifying draw for 30 minutes from 10 to 10:30. Then all cars for 30 minutes, 10:30 to 11, and then we'll begin qualifications and run them from noon to 6.
And at 12 noon, you'll roll the first car, and it's green flag, third time by?
Yeah, it will be. We've added a lap with the cool track temperatures and ambient temperatures. We'll add a third warm-up lap. So to start the attempt, they'd take the green flag, third time by.
Well, there you have it, guys. The man who makes the decisions, Brian Barnhart, tried to get the track dry today. The rain's keep coming. In fact, it's moving back in right now. But tomorrow at 12 noon, all 22, the top 22 spots will be settled. 12 noon Eastern time, wave the green flag, third time by for Indy pole qualifying and to set much of the field for this year's 90th running. Marty?
And thank you, Jerry. I want to thank Brian Barnhart also because we thought it was going to be John Lewis. That's what we were all expecting, and Brian came out of a meeting specially to update us. We'll see everything on ESPN2 starting at 12 noon tomorrow. What can we expect, Scott Goodyear?
Well, Indy qualifying is always full of pressure anyways because you have to have 4 laps consistently to get that total accumulation of time. So tomorrow, with the little running that we've had, there's a lot of pressure on those drivers and team owners and team managers and engineers to get the cars right in that short half-an-hour practice that they have before they start qualifying at 12 noon. A lot of pressure on the drivers tomorrow, Rusty. That's what I used to always love about this place, but it can be a sleepless night.
Well, Scott and Marty, you're right. They've compacted everything into one day tomorrow for the top 22 qualifiers. And what's going to happen? These crew chiefs sit around all day today overthinking sometimes, should we make this change? What should we do? I'll promise you, these drivers are going to be in bed early because they know it's on the line for tomorrow. A lot of focus, a lot of attention is going to be paid tomorrow. They want to get in this race. They want to do it the right way. and I think it's going to be dry tomorrow, and I'm positive we're going to get this racing. I'm a pretty optimistic guy, Marty.
Well, the race isn't until the end of the month. I know we'll get the
race for the pole, buddy.
All right, let's get you caught up on what's happened so far with some of our individual players in this great 90th running of this event. Take you back a couple of years ago with Buddy Rice, his highest high. Even though the race was shortened to 180 laps because of rain, Buddy came home with the win for Ray Hall Letterman Racing. But from that point on, his memories here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway have been anything but good. This was last year in turn 2. This one put him out of the race, Scott Goodyear.
A very difficult thing when you hit the wall because you don't know if he actually can come back, and he did not defend his championship last year. But this situation now, this year, he does get a chance to drive the car. Remember, he's one of the team leaders for this group, so I think for him, he wants to get in there, get some practice time, help the team set up the cars, get ready for the race.
And Jack Arute is in his garage.
And Marty, let's go to this past week on May 11th, 2006. Forgive Buddy Rice if he felt it was deja vu all over again, when just as you saw in that video, he had exactly the same sort of crash in exactly the same place. But unlike last year, he's been cleared to drive. He's got his T car, the Argent Mortgage Honda is ready to go. And I wanted to take just a couple of moments to show you it wasn't cockpit error. The crew is finally, Jeff Britton and the crew have determined that this piece right here, this toe link is what it's called. It's a heim joint that's attached, and it keeps the wheels in a certain configuration. Excuse me. This is what broke. And all of a sudden, when I was talking to Buddy Rice a little bit earlier today, he said, no warning, a snap right into the wall. And the one good thing, fellas, is he hit the safer barrier here. And Jamie Little, that safer barrier probably ensured that Buddy Rice should be ready to qualify, hopefully in at least the front couple of rows when we do go for qualifications tomorrow.
Well, Jack Arute, he's had the fastest car the last 2 years. Wow, some fans are excited to see Helio Castroneves despite the rain coming down. And Helio, you've been so gracious to hang out, waiting to see if pole day was going to happen. Now tomorrow, we just heard from Barnhart, we're going to qualify 22 if the weather's nice. How does that affect you guys?
Well, I guess we're pretty much in control, to be honest. So far, both cars seem to be very fast, and if it is advantage or not, we take it, you know. So, well, just hope. I thought we were going to have some practice today and give those guys and me a little chance to see us running, but still raining, as you guys can see, and hopefully tomorrow we put a good show.
All right, Helio, best of luck. Hopefully we'll see you on track tomorrow. Helio Castroneves in the number 3 car. Vince?
Well, this is a very special year here in Indianapolis because Michael Andretti is returning to the Indianapolis 500. Hasn't been here since 2003, and there's been much anticipation about his return as you see him on the track during practice earlier this week. And there's a lot of talk about the Andretti family because his son Marco is also making his debut here at the Speedway, just 19 years of age, and we're in the garage with Michael. And it's been a long time, and, well, the weather's still the same. You left 3 years ago, and the weather hasn't changed a bit.
You're right. It's just a shame. I feel so bad for all the fans that came out here, you know. It seems like every year it's like this on qualifying weekend. I don't know what it is. It's just, it's a bummer for all of us.
Is it harder on Marco because he's not been through it before to you as compared to you?
Yeah, I feel really bad for him. He's going to have another sleepless night, you know. It's for a rookie, it's really tough. Qualifying is the highest pressure of the month, and I'm sure for him, he just can't wait to get it over with. I know I can't, so he's got to be 10 times as bad.
What have you talked with him about to get him prepared for what is ahead?
You know, there's not a lot we can say, except for, you know, all I tell him is you have to respect this place, because this place will bite you real fast and turn you humble very quickly. So never get cocky here. And, you know, he's been doing it. He's been respecting it. He's doing a real good job.
There's been a lot of talk about the two of you and the father-son combination. You experienced that as the son in the relationship with your dad, Mario. What was it like for you to race with him?
Well, some of the most special times in my career were when we were together, especially as teammates, racing against each other and being on the same team and everything. It was really great. And now to be able to do it with my son is really special, you know, and to be able to say I'm the only guy that's ever done that here at Indianapolis is pretty cool.
What would it mean to you to win the Indianapolis 500?
You know, I don't even think I can put it in words. You know, it's been such a tough place for me, and I have so much respect for it, and to come out of here with a win would be huge. And you know, we're doing everything we can with the Jim Beam Vonage car. I think we have a good shot at it.
Michael Andretti in the #1 machine. We'll have a lot more with Michael and the Andretti family coming up a little bit later in the show. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Well, last year, pole day began what was a sensational month of May for one Danica Patrick. And take a look, this slight bobble, this tiny twitch in turn one on lap one, that was the hiccup that kept her out of the history books as the first woman ever to claim the pole for the Indianapolis 500. But what a great race she had, and what a great May she had. She ended up leading the race 19 laps and finishing fourth, the best ever by a woman driver in the field. But that was a year ago. What about today? Let's go in and check with Danica Patrick back in her garage area in the Ray Hall Letterman garage. And Danica, hey, thanks for taking some moments to come over and join us. I know it's a rainy afternoon here, but I want to ask you, what was going through your mind a year ago entering turn one when that car gave that sudden bobble?
For the most part, I collected it as a driver instinctively would, but I was mad. I spent the last couple laps of that run just being so angry, and I didn't actually know what my speed was because I was seeing speeds, and for some reason I had lap times on my dash, so I was all confused, and I thought for sure I'm dead last. So I was just mad.
You were upset. You tried to go back out, but they wouldn't let you later in the day. That was a compelling shot of you getting out of the car, sort of dropping your helmet down.
Yeah, well, I was, like I said, I was mad. I had a car that deserved to be on pole, and it was lost a little bit. So we went back out in practice, and Mr. Ray Hall said that if we didn't do 2:28 for 4 laps, that we wouldn't get to run. And if anybody knows, we qualified at mid 2:27 was pole time, so we had to do over 2:28 to qualify again. And I thought, geez, that's going to be hard enough as it is. So we didn't go back out, and the car was a little unstable anyway, so we started second row.
What is the difference between the Danica Patrick that came here as a raw rookie a year ago and the one that was getting ready to qualify for the pole today?
Well, I obviously know a little bit more. I would imagine that the little mistakes have been cleaned up, and I've already noticed a difference over the end of last year and the beginning of this year of just being a little more thorough with pit stops and just making small little mistakes, and most importantly, I think for a race, being instinctive and accurate in what the car should do over the duration of a race, whether it be full fuel, low fuel, good tires, bad tires, and adapting.
You know, last year you guys were quick right out of the box. In the first day, you were among the faster cars on the track. This year, you're the quickest of the 3 Ray Hall Letterman cars, but 15th overall on the speed grids. Why are you guys struggling to find the speed?
I know why.
Oh, here we go.
We haven't had any cowbell until now.
Uh-oh, special ritual down here. Now, what does the cowbell mean?
Well, it's a Saturday Night Live Will Ferrell skit where he's doing the song, a really famous song. I can't remember what it's called. I'm not old enough yet to know what it was. But he was in the song using a cowbell, and they thought, no, we don't need any cowbell. And then the band members were mad, and so the guy that was recording the video came out and said, hey, all we need is a little more cowbell in the song. So that would be the reason why we've been off the pace. We haven't had any cowbell.
Well, now you found your mojo in the form of a cowbell hill, and we're expecting the speed for pole day tomorrow. And I got to ask you, how much can a driver? What difference can you make in the car? If the car, at a lot of tracks, the driver can make a difference. Here, if you try to make a difference, is it risky?
Yeah, it usually trying to go faster than what the car can give you would, I would say, most of the time result in the crash. This is just it's unforgiving. It's a one groove track, and it's so fast that one little thing will put you over the edge. So my job as a driver is to get the most out of the car I can without making any mistakes and without bringing a car home that's damaged.
Hey, thanks for taking some time. We'll talk to you a little later on in the show.
All right, thank you. Go Cowbell.
Yeah. Take a look at the Argent Mortgage machine that she will attempt to qualify tomorrow. Her book is entitled Danica Crossing the Line. She will cross the line 4 consecutive laps tomorrow for pole day, trying to put this car on the pole. She came so close a year ago. That one little bobble in turn 1 kept her from going in the history books as the first woman to qualify and lead the field down in the Indianapolis 500.
Doc, if she puts it on the pole, the sale of cowbells is going to go through the roof, I guarantee you. Stay with us. We have got a lot more coming your way. In fact, it will include Michael Andretti making the transition from car owner back to race car driver, and more with Danica Patrick. It's been a whirlwind year but as you heard, it's not been all that great out on the racetrack. And Helio just celebrated a birthday. He's 31, and a legend is back. The Unser name is returned with Al Jr. Indianapolis 500 Pole Day telecast presented by Capital One on ABC Sports, brought to you by Capital One. What's in your wallet? Firestone Tires, a tradition of innovation. And Wagner Power Painters. Paint fast, paint smart. And if you're just tuning in, we can tell you that qualifications for pole day have been canceled. They will resume tomorrow at 12 noon. And we will be here with coverage on ESPN2 starting at noon. But right now, don't go away because we've got a lot more to show you and tell you about as we transcend the history of this 90-year celebration known as the Indianapolis 500. We showed you this video a little bit earlier at the very top of the show. The 3 Andretti member family out on the track at the same time. It's video you'll probably only get one chance to see because they just don't let anybody just hop in the old hot rods and take them around the tour, this 2.5-mile circuit. Now, Michael Andretti, of course, making his return to the Speedway here. And Michael has finished second back in 1991 and led a ton of laps. But in 14 starts, he is yet to win, and he is still chasing that forever elusive dream. Will he get it this year?
It's the biggest race in the world.
Indianapolis is a race is so important to a driver's career because you will be known for that much more than you would for any championship.
I mean, when you win Indianapolis, then, I mean, that you'll always be known as an Indianapolis 500 winner, and that'll stay with you the rest of your life.
People don't know how many championships I won, if I won any, but they know that I won Indianapolis.
And Andretti takes it. He's won the Indianapolis 500.
And it's almost unfair to some degree because you need so much going for you, so much luck in many ways to be able to do it. And there's so many great, great champions that never won. They're viewed differently somewhat. You know, that's the unfair part about it.
To me, Indianapolis as a racetrack is probably one of my best tracks. I mean, I've had some of my best races, my best race cars at Indy, but I've had my worst luck at Indy.
Michael Andretti is slowing down. An unbelievable turn of events. The man who has dominated this race. 11 laps to go. Suddenly the car slows and Michael appears to be done.
I have never seen a race driver in my life that deserves this race more than Michael Andretti.
There's been a lot of plane flights home. That's why I remember just talking about how we could have won it and how we were so close to winning the race.
Unfortunately, right now, I'm most laps led for a non-winner.
That's why I feel for Michael so much because was he capable of winning it? You're darn right. He dominated that race more than even 4-time winners.
It was just an unspoken thing. You know, I don't think he needed to talk about how important it was.
We almost didn't talk about this place just because of how, like, we don't have many good memories here, to be honest.
After 14 Indy 500 starts, Michael Andretti retired as a driver in 2003 to pursue a career as an owner. Last year, Michael watched his car win the pole, then win the race. 2 feats he was never able to accomplish. Last December, Michael announced he would return to Indy.
I'll guarantee you the motivating factor is to experience being on the racetrack with his own son, just like he and I did. Believe me, in a lifetime, that's something that's so precious.
I experienced it as a driver and a team owner. Now I'm going to have to experience it as a father. I never thought that I'd have an opportunity to drive against Marco and still be competitive and still be young enough.
The thing is with us, we sort of just know it. We don't really talk about, oh, how cool it's going to be. You know, we're both going to be driving there. We sort of know that it's going to be awesome.
That's why I'm doing it. But once, you know, made that decision to do it, then it's like, all right, my goal's to win the race.
He wants to win this race, no question. He bounced right back into how he used to be, which is the most focused man I've ever seen in my life.
I never thought I'd have another opportunity to win this race, and I think I can win the race. I don't think I've lost anything. That's why I'm coming back.
At Indy this year, I like to see Michael win it. I'll be cheering him on to win. I'll be cheering Marco to be right behind him.
And let's bring in Goodyear and Rusty Wallace again. You raced against Mario and Michael. The Andretti name has a lot of power around here.
It certainly does. When I came here as a rookie in 1990, it was a thrill to have the Andrettis on the track, the Foyts, the Rutherfords, because that's part of the history and part of the lure that actually is all about the Indianapolis 500. And as a driver, if you had a chance to race against those guys, that was terrific. I even ran against Michael back in the Formula 4 days, so I understand what he feels here. Maybe haven't led as many laps as he did, but finishing second just isn't winning it.
Well, we got the news just a little while ago. I want to bring a proud papa in here because your son Steven's sitting on the pole for today's ARCA race, so you have this father-son connection. You could sort of identify this. Would you like to race with Steve and have that feeling?
I really enjoyed watching this piece. I thought it was a well-done piece. It's, yeah, I love to run with Steven. He's highly talented. He's flying. It's like you said, he's on the pole for today's race with a new track record and everything. But, you know, the Andrettis, it's just a wonderful family. It's like Indianapolis needs an Andretti. They need an Unser. They need names like that. There's wonderful drivers, and I personally think that Michael retired too early. And I think when he went out, he missed it so badly, he wanted to come back. And I will tell you, yeah, he wants to run with his son. That's for sure, Scott and Marty. But once he got in that car, and he felt it, and he smelt the engine and the whole deal, and got it in, he says, you know what? I'm going to win this race.
What is it, guys, that certain families, there seems to be a gene pool? I mean, look at the Unser clan and the Andretti family. I mean, do you guys agree with that it's something that's passed on?
I truly believe it is because, you know, you think of all the successful families. It doesn't matter if they're racing go-karts or dirt cars or whatever it is. Everybody in the family has been successful. So I think there's something in the gene that actually is passed along, and it just seems to happen. You hear drivers say all the time, it's a reaction. You know, it's just something that happens when something happens in front of you or you're driving the car. It just happens for you. There is no time to think about it. Not when you're traveling the length of a football field in about 7/10 of a second. It just has to happen naturally.
Alan Jr.'s son, he's coming on right now. He's going to follow in his father's footsteps, his uncles and cousins and all that, all the Unser family. He's probably going to be a force to be reckoned with also. You look at the Petties, you look at a lot of these young guys out there. I agree with you, Scott. It definitely is in your genes. If your great dad grows up a racer, you want to be a racer. You don't want to be a milkman or a newspaper delivery guy. Not that there's anything wrong with that at all, but something special about being a race car driver.
Absolutely.
The third generation, of course, is Marco Andretti, the 19-year-old. He is going to be trying to qualify for his first ever Indianapolis 500. Let's find out what his teammates think about this 19-year-old rookie. Vince is with Tony Kanaan.
Well, last year's pole sitter, TK, in the number 11 711 car for Andretti Green. And TK was watching with interest the piece on the Andretti family. And you've driven for a lot of different teams. What's it like driving for Michael Andretti?
Well, for the first thing, you become more famous right away because everybody knows Michael and they know it's his team and you're driving for him. So it's pretty good. I mean, they gave me the best cars of all my years that I've been racing, and I gave them back the championship. So it's good. I mean, you get a lot of attention for sure.
On the pole here at Indianapolis last year, and that's a very prestigious position. You told me a moment ago that you're not concentrating on the pole this year. What are you focusing on?
Well, Vince, it's easy to say that you're not concentrating on the pole when you're not that fast. So I'm not trying to make any excuses, but I would say that during this week we found out that we're probably not going to have the same speed as the pole guys. So we try to concentrate to keep the car fast, but without overdoing it to try to get the pole. So we found out in our team that you can win from 16th like Dan did, and I started on the pole last year. So we're trying the best as we can to be able to put it in the first two rows, which it's been all the years that I race here, I never start worse than 5th. So I want to try to, to keep that right now, and we'll see. I think we do have a strong car, but I don't know if it's going to be fast enough to put it on the pole.
You talked about your teammates. Are you guys taking good care of little 19-year-old Marco?
Yeah, he's right behind me. You guys going to see him in a little bit, and we play a couple pranks on him this week. I think he lost a pair of his shoes already, and it's coming. Today we had all day to think about it, and I promised to the ESPN and ABC people that as soon as I come up with something, which I can't tell because he's right there behind me, I'll let you guys know so we can we can get some video footage of it.
Oh, we can't wait for that, TK. And let's go to Jamie Little with some of Tony's teammates.
Yes, they are working very hard, Vince. We're with Brian Herda, and right now you're watching his work. He's actually boxing on a video game against his own teammate, Dario Franchitti, who's in a motorhome just a couple rows down. Look at him. He's got the headset on. It's an internet video game these guys are playing. Look at this. This is how they work on their hand-eye coordination for the race. So, Brian, are you actually talking to Dario in here?
Yeah, I'm not talking too much because he's been kicking my butt here, but if I can get a good shot in, I'll start talking some smack again.
And who are you playing?
I'm Joe Frazier, and he's Muhammad Ali. So I gave him the good fighter, so, you know, I got a disadvantage. I got the slow car, but I'm going to try and beat him anyway.
Well, we have Jack Arute is actually with Dario over on the other side, getting a full vantage point.
Yeah, and Jamie, I wanted to report to you that, as they used to say, actually, down goes Frazier. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Down goes Frazier yet again. Dario, your teammate's saying that he has the slower car. I think you just have the faster thumbs.
I'm not sure what excuse number that was that Herta just used there. I just want to point out to everybody that Herta is in fact stealing his internet access from Tony Kanaan. I've actually paid for my internet access, so maybe that's why he's getting beaten. He's a little bit slower because he's hot-wired it off Kanaan's bus.
We should talk about these microphones a little bit because you said that's the best part of this because you can talk some smack to your opponent.
Yeah, you can talk some good smack, especially when you're winning, but the other end's always a bit quiet. If Brian's winning, he's giving it to me, but right now it's my turn to get some revenge here.
Yeah, it's kind of tough for a Scotsman here to be able to talk and be able to move the toggle switches on this control and get the best. But I do want to ask you a question about this Andretti Green Racing team because it has expanded. It certainly has brought an awful lot of the muscle that we saw 1 year ago and the additions as well. And now Mario's son, Michael, is in the cockpit, and Michael's son, Marco, is in the cockpit. Can it get any bigger than AGR is right now?
I think 5 cars is a lot. You know, it's good to have Michael back. I was sitting in a debrief the other day just thinking, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. He's been out of the car for a couple of days, you know, for a couple of years rather, and Artute's trying to talk smack and put me off here. But it's good to have Mike back, and he's as determined as ever. But Marco is picking up on that family trait as well. But we just got to be quicker tomorrow when it comes to qualifying.
Yeah, qualifying, and it will be fun. And hold on, I'm going to take care of Herta here. Shut up, Herta! Let's go back upstairs.
And as the boxing match continues, we'll tell you that Dario is the 7th fastest so far this month. Brian, the 9th fastest. When we come back, we'll talk to the young 19-year-old rookie. There he is, Marco Andretti.
As it's the biggest IndyCar Series event of the year, the Indianapolis 500. Some legendary families are back. Unser Jr. takes on father and son Michael and Marco Andretti. The Indy 500, Sunday, May 28th, noon Eastern on ABC.
Even though pole day has been postponed until tomorrow, that is Cheap Trick on the infield plaza performing for the fans. And look at them. They've stuck around. God bless them. It's been a wet and soggy day, but we'll have pole day for you tomorrow at the Indianapolis 500 at noon and again at 6 Eastern on ESPN2. So as the band plays on, what do you tell a 19-year-old rookie? Well, when your name is Andretti, it depends on who you talk to.
Patience. But I think he's got so much experience around him between his 3 other teammates, his dad and his grandpa. I mean, he's going to have a lot of information coming in, and if he can harness that and use it to his advantage, I think he'll do quite well.
Just take it lap by lap. The advice that I got from some of the veterans was just, you know, don't take this place for granted and respect it, and that's what I did.
I don't think that Marco would be in the car if he wasn't capable of it. You know, he is definitely the guy to do that job, and in years to come, you'll see how successful he's going to be.
With Marco and Michael Andretti, certainly 2 of the most photographed teammates in the paddock area this season. Now, 2:23.6, you're faster than the old man. Have you been rubbing that in at all?
No, of course not. I know better because I know what can happen tomorrow. It's just going to be the opposite, and you know, I think he's doing well because I think, you know, he's doing it comfortably, and I'm on the edge, and I think we actually, you know, we talked about that, and you know, he's telling me that I don't need to be on the edge to go quick, and, you know, he's right. He's almost as quick as me, and he's doing it comfortably, so I need to learn from that.
Is there anything that he can say that can really prepare you for what you feel as a rookie here at Indianapolis?
No, I mean, there's not a lot you can teach at this point. I mean, sort of maybe after the point or after the fact, you know, something happens sometimes, then we come back and talk about it to prepare me for next time. But that's the point of being a rookie, is you have to learn from experience.
Michael, are you more dad or more teammate or more team owner when it comes to the relationship here at the track?
I've been trying to treat it as teammate, really, you know, because I'm out there doing my own experience, and I'm trying to work and trying to use that experience to try to help him if I can, and even my other teammates, you know, just whatever we learn, I'll share. And, you know, there's a lot of things that I've been doing to try to help him. And like you said, the comfort thing. I'm going almost the same speed, but I'm doing it, you know, not scaring myself. And so those are the things where I think I can help him.
You've admitted that you've had some struggles in the pit area this season. Have you been able to give him some advice that you hope that maybe smooths that out come race day?
Well, I think they worked that out. You know, they looked at all the data, what he was doing, and I think he was just, you know, dropping the clutch too hard. And I think he did a really good job in Motegi. So I think we're past that one.
Hey, before we let you go, I know you've got a special opportunity for some race fans out there on race weekend here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, you can go to eBay and bid on the package that we're doing for my foundation to come here and be VIP guests of Andretti Green Racing for the weekend. It'd be a first-class deal for you, and it's for a good cause. The money's going to go to Sam Schmidt Foundation, which his foundation gets behind a lot of paralysis things, and you know, it's a good cause. So try to go and bid on it. It's there until Monday.
Find that on eBay. Thank you, Michael. Marco, best of luck to you in your rookie campaign. Let's go upstairs to Marty.
All right, thanks, Vince. And we'll have more with an all-access pass with Marco Andretti. And there's Danica. She's signing some autographs. We'll have more with her. And when we come back, Dan Patrick and Mark Jackson have an NBA playoff update coming your way from New York after this message and a word from our ABC stations. All right, thanks, Dan. And we're here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where join us on Memorial Day weekend for the greatest spectacle in races. It's the legendary Brickyard, the 90th running of the Indianapolis 500, presented by Capital One, Sunday, May 29th, noon, right here on ABC. And we've been postponed until tomorrow for poll day, but it gives us time to talk more about Danica Patrick. As 10 years ago, she came to the Speedway for the first time. A kid dreaming of crossing the yard of bricks herself. She finally realized that pursuit last year. The attention that followed and remains put the dreams of a little girl in the spotlight. We look back on Danica Mania that surrounded her year.
I still have the same dreams and aspirations as I did when I came to Indianapolis Motor Speedway in '97, and I think that's important. I think it's important to hold on to those dreams, because it's all about who doesn't give up. I always thought that, most importantly, if I was given the opportunity to be fast, the response would be there. All I needed in IndyCar, the top level of racing, was a good race car.
Speed Queen, Danica Patrick.
Why Danica? She's the first woman in racing that has the total package.
We're in Japan, and it's Danica Patrick.
She has the tenacity.
A week ago, she sat on the front row and turned heads around the fastest rookie on the racetrack.
She's trained her whole life for this.
Hell of a job.
She's the real deal, and she does have a shot for
Will she be the first woman to win the Indy 500?
Danica Patrick may have changed this entire sport.
Coming off the track from the Indy 500 and seeing the excitement on everybody's faces and hugging everybody, that is 14 years of blood, sweat, and tears all in one day coming together. And while you can be very confident that that day will come and that you're going to make it happen, you can never be quite so sure.
A woman driver making racing history.
Danica Patrick finishes another race.
Win a pole, famous for a day. Win a race, famous for life. Danica Patrick has shuttled back to 9th place. Just did not work out for her.
She did not qualify well.
You're going to tell me, you didn't try hard enough? That's not true.
When are you going to close the deal?
She seems to be drifting back.
She did not race well.
The question I think everyone wants to know across America, can Danica win?
I want to win more than anything. And so everything that everyone could say won't make me try harder.
And this will be Danica's 20th race, if and when we get around to qualifying. But take a look at the number of racing starts for these guys before they got their first win. Unser Sr., a total of 57. He's a 4-time champion here. A guy by the name of A.J. Foyt had 34 starts. You see Castroneves, Wheldon, Mario Andretti, 16. Let's talk a little bit about it. When does that first win come? Is it this year, or because of the way the Panos chassis seems to be performing, is it down the road, Scott Goodyear?
Well, Marty, that all comes down to the Panos chassis, as you mentioned, and the engineers and how they can make that car work for her on race day. Because you heard her say earlier on, you can't overdrive a car here. If you do, you usually end up in the wall. So the most important thing to do is make the car comfortable. You heard Michael Andretti talk about that. That's what gets you to the end of the race here. I've lived it before. You have to change the car as you go through the race to make it ready for that sprint, which always comes at the end of the day. So her goal is to make a car very comfortable for her to drive, because right now with that Panos chassis, as you mentioned, they might not have a chance at the front row.
Rusty, you drove with her back at the Rolex 24. Do you think she can win this year?
Marty, I know she can win this year. This gal's smart. She's technical. She knows what she needs her car to do. She's got a good team behind her, and she's helped build this sport a lot. She's a real humble person about building the sport, but she's very, very focused. Now, look, I drove with her in Daytona. The thing I like about Danica's a very technical person, as I mentioned earlier. She talks about springs, she talks about shocks, air pressure settings, her wing angle. She's very involved in the car with her crew chief and everybody. So a gal like that, she's well-rounded, she's well-educated, and she's got 1/500 under her belt. But let's not forget about one thing. This is going to be her 20th race, guys. That's like a half of a NASCAR season, okay? she doesn't have a whole lot of experience here at Indy. She's amazed me by what she's been able to do at all racetracks around the country, guys. She's a star, no doubt about that. She will get the job done if she's got the right equipment. And yes, Danica Patrick can win the 90th run in the Indianapolis 500. I know she could do it.
All right, well, we also have another star from another form of motorsports, NHRA Powerade drag racing, and she is on top of the top fuel points and set a little history of her own. How about it, Jerry Punch?
Exactly. Talk about attractive young women at the top of their game in terms of motorsports. Melanie Troxel, welcome. You're an Indianapolis native. Welcome to the Speedway.
Thanks. It's great to be out here. You know, we live just up the road in Avon, Indiana, but we're not usually in town when the racing's going on, so it's a neat opportunity to get to come out here. Unfortunately, we're not getting to see any racing today.
Top fuel driver for Don Schumacher Racing, leading the top fuel point standings. What a year you're having.
Yeah, we really are. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have gotten the call last July to come drive for Don Schumacher and Skullshine. That in itself was a huge opportunity. I'd spent the previous 2 years out of the seat entirely, but to come out and have the kind of season that we're having this year has just been pretty incredible. Won the first race right off the bat. We've won another event beyond that, and I think we've been to 6 out of the 7 finals so far this year. So I've got a great crew chief. Everybody on the team is just really pulling together and making this happen.
We talk about how the league here has embraced Danica Patrick and Janet Guthrie years ago. Lynn St. James, Sarah Fisher, they kicked the door open for women here in IndyCar racing. How difficult was it for you to be accepted over there in NHRA as a very competitive drag racer?
You know, I really grew up around the sport, so I think to some degree, you know, I paid my dues, came up through the ranks, and people have been very accepting of that. But certainly Shirley Muldowney coming into our sport, winning 3 championships when no man had ever done that, had that same effect, really kicked the door open, and it's been, I think, easier maybe in drag racing than other types of motorsports for women to get these opportunities.
Melanie, you were the first woman ever to lead the first quarter voting in the Driver of the Year balloting. You got votes from all over the world, and what does that mean to you?
You know what, that's so incredible. I mean, it wasn't even really on my radar screen. You know, we were having this great year, but to know that people outside of the sport are paying attention and not only to our team, but to drag racing in general is just an incredible honor.
Well, Melanie Troxel, her husband Tommy Johnson, who drives for the Snake Prudhomme in Funny Car, they're both here just enjoying the day at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Thanks for coming by.
Hey, thank you. Unfortunately, you know, maybe we'll make it out here and get to see a little bit of racing tomorrow or in the next couple of days.
Good to see you. Marty?
Thanks, Doc. Next weekend, they'll be racing in Columbus, and Memorial Day, they'll be at Heartland Park, Topeka. That's Danny Sullivan. When we come back, we'll flash back to a great moment. Remember, spin and win. Tonight, with the series tied 1-on-1, it's Dallas and Spurs. It's a crucial Game 3. The Mavericks tonight, prime time, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. It's all on ABC, home of the NBA Finals. And everything has been postponed here today. We'll try qualifying again tomorrow. We'll have it for you on ESPN2 at 12 noon. Let's take a flashback to 1985. Remember the spin and win? Here's Jim McKay.
Danny Sullivan going down low.
Can he make the move? Sullivan down low. Side by side, Sullivan has the lead. Danny Sullivan, Kentucky. And just at that moment, losing control of the car, doing a magnificent job of not hitting the wall and continuing in the race. It's unbelievable.
The incredible move maybe ever in Indianapolis, and Mario didn't hit him, Jim. That's even more incredible. Andretti subtly moving to the side like a fighter, taking a punch but letting it slip by him. Sullivan at 200 miles an hour recovering from that spin. You have to go back to Jim Clark in 1964-5, Jim, to get a move like that on this racetrack.
I've never seen anything like it on the Indianapolis racetrack.
Incredible.
Unbelievable, but he's going to come in. That may have caused problems in the car.
That is absolutely unbelievable what we saw. Of course, he must now stop because he's flat-spotted those tires. He's coming down that very rough pit lane there, which keeps the speeds down.
Listen to the cheers for him.
Oh, it's incredible. This place has come alive, and of course, Andretti is in the pits too, both the leaders. But Sullivan is going to have to change all 4 tires because of that. Mario will go back out. See, they're even changing that left front tire, which they've never changed.
Well, that'll cost him the lead, no question of it, but Danny Sullivan is back out on the race course. I have never seen a person take a spin like that and begin to slide towards the wall and still recover. Let's have another look at it. We're going to have slow motion here in just a moment.
I'll tell you exactly what I think happened, Jim, even before seeing it. Aerodynamic effects. Watch what happens. I'll bet you that as Sullivan gets in front of Mario, no, I'm dead wrong. It's running over that the white line. The very thing that he was doing that made him so fast, I think, tripped him in this one move. Yeah, Mario's too far back, I think, to have had a rear guard aerodynamic effect. But all right, now, Andretti faced with the moment of his driving life. He can't see where he's going. Fades slightly to the left by a miracle. Sullivan stays wide enough to the right, hits nothing, and we may have seen the most dramatic moment of racing certainly that we're going to see this year. Incredible.
And it certainly was, and there is the spot where it all occurred in the short chute at Indianapolis. We shift gears to go from the 1985 winner to the 2005 winner. He's with Jamie.
That's right, Mr. Dan Wheldon. He's been hiding out back here, and we finally caught up with him, the defending champion, like you said, defending IndyCar Series champion. Danny, how difficult is it for you guys? I know you're the defending champion. You got the target on your back, and here it's like weight after weight after weight. How do you deal with this?
Well, see, I struggle. It's a little strange for me. All these guys have got these nice buses here. I haven't purchased one of them yet, so I think that could be my next purchase because it's kind of cozy up there. They've got the computer games all going on.
Would you win like $1.5 million last year for winning this race? It's not like you don't have the money to afford one of these.
You got to remember, us English people are tight. But you see, Kanaan's always been very good to me and always let me hang out in his, so we're good to go.
Now you're hanging out with Tomas Scheckter even.
Well, he's got a good boxing game. I think actually Dario and Brian were just playing it, so we're going to have a go.
You guys are all having a good time. You're very relaxed considering the situation. But in all reality, let's step out here. I think we're cutting in and out a little bit. In all reality, coming into this race this year, how does it differ from last year at this time?
Well, I think for me, obviously, I achieved the dream of winning the biggest race in the world. And I didn't really know what to expect when I came back in terms of my motivation and how I would be. And it's crazy, really, because I think I'm even more motivated. And I put a lot of pressure on myself last year and was very motivated to win because I had the package to. But it's just, you don't want to give up what you've kind of had through winning that race, and the only way to keep that is by winning it again. So we'll have to wait and see. I think certainly we have a very strong package. I feel very bad for the fans that came out today because, you know, they're very enthusiastic, and I did an interview in the Pagoda at 2 o'clock today, and there was people still in the grandstands waiting for cars. So we'll put on a great display when we come out, but we just haven't come out yet.
Well, Dan Wheldon, new team, new number, wants to prove he can win with another team. Guys?
And the next time we see him, probably a new bus as well. All right, we've got to go. When we come back, it'll be time for the legends to speak about Indy.
Now stay tuned for the greatest spectacle in racing.
There's no race in the world that compares with the Indy 500. To be fortunate enough to win, there's just no greater thrill.
The main thing to me is it puts you on a pedestal.
Indianapolis has something no other track I know of has, and that's tradition.
Ladies and gentlemen,
start your engines.
A lot of stories, with the Indianapolis 500, and I'm very proud to be one of the stories.
When you win a championship or you win Indianapolis, you just have to pinch yourself.
People see me at Indy throw fits. People see me have a lot of fun. That's what made AJ Foyt.
Back here at Indianapolis, it's Indianapolis Pole Day. Our telecast presented by Capital One. Unfortunately, qualifying today has been postponed. We'll do it tomorrow at 12 noon on ESPN2, and that's the only vehicle that's been on the track all day, the tour bus. The fans are going by waving to us every lap as they go around. We're glad that they're hanging with us, and glad that you're hanging with us as well. Over in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame is Vince Welch. If you were with us earlier on ESPN2, we took you through the decades of the teens. How about the 20s, Vince?
Well, Marty, I am in one of the great race cars of all time, a Duesenberg that Jimmy Murphy drove the victory at Le Mans in 1921 and then drove it the victory in the 500 here at Indianapolis in 1922. You know, the decades of the 20s here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway introduced us to four-lap qualifying, the first two-time winner, and a pair of Duesenberg teammates that share a spot on the Borg-Warner Trophy. Let's go back in Brickyard history, circa 1920. The 1920s continued to roar as the field grew from 23 to 33 by 1929. Engine sizes shrank, qualifying speeds increased, and familiar sights began to take shape. Four-lap qualifying in 1920 and cars gridded in rows of three in 1921. Ralph De Palma was poised to become the first two-time Indy winner in 1920, but an engine fire doused that hope, allowing Gaston Chevrolet to take the win. Later that year, Chevrolet died racing in Beverly Hills. De Palma returned in 1921 to become the first back-to-back pole winner, but he failed to finish. The Italian left Indy with 612 laps led, a record that stood for 66 years. Tommy Milton, filling in for the late Chevrolet, drove the defending champ's car to victory in his third Indy 500. Jimmy Murphy made 1922 a year of firsts, the first driver to compete with four brakes, the first to win from pole, and the first to average over 90 miles per hour. Two-man cars, mandatory since 1912, became optional in 1923, but it still took two men to make Tommy Milton the first two-time winner. His relief driver, 1919 champ Howdy Wilcox, took the wheel for 48 laps. Indy saw its first co-winners in 1924, L.L. Coram and Joe Boyer. Coram started, but teammate Boyer took the checkered flag. Ralph De Palma's nephew, Peter DiPaolo, beat his uncle and 20 other drivers to the checkered flag in 1925. DiPaolo became the first to average more than 100 miles per hour. Dirt track stars outclassed the field from 1926 to 28. Frank Lockhart, George Souders, and Louis Meyer were each in their first Indy 500 starts. But it was Meyer who would later become a legend. Lockhart died in a crash 2 weeks prior to the 1928 race. But his legacy lived on in the engine he built, driven to victory lane by Ray Keech in 1929. 2 weeks later, Keech himself would die racing. The 20s saw several records set. Harry Hartz holds two that remain. The most second-place finishes without a win, but also the best finishes in his first 5 starts. As we look at some of the highlights of the 1920s, look at the jump in pole speed during the decade, more than 20 miles per hour. And it was a decade of firsts. The first winner from the pole, Tommy Milton, becomes the first two-time winner. And Jamie Little, we also had the first co-winners at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Well, that's right, Vince Welch. You talked about him right here. L.L. Coram, co-winner with Joe Boyer, 1924, right here. Only one of 2 sets of faces on here that were co-winners. Now, there's 92 faces. This is what we call the Borg-Warner Trophy. It's one of the most coveted trophies in all of sports. And, guys, this made its debut in the 1920s. But as you can see, if you go down to the base here, they've run out of room. So recently, in 2003, they unveiled the new base here to fill up all this room right here to get us through 2035, I believe. Now, a little trivia question here. Who's the only face on here with glasses? I believe it's right here, Rick Mears. Hard to see there, but he wanted to be put on here with glasses on. And this right here, BorgWarner, is about $1 million. Sterling silver, makes its way around the track for different appearances. But you know, when they brought this out, the only problem with it was the drivers couldn't take it home. So in 1991, they came out with the baby Borg. And this gets to go home with the guys 18 inches tall with their very own face. And we actually saw it earlier with Helio Castroneves. Guys?
Thank you, Jamie. You know, back in 1925, Peter DiPolo actually needed to climb out of the car and get a relief driver for 21 laps. Norman Batten climbed in the car while DiPolo got his badly blistered hands bandaged up. Then he climbed back in his supercharged Duesenberg and won the Indy 500. By the way, 1925, that was the first year the race ran in less than 5 hours. But back then, those guys weren't very physically fit. Fitness was involved with maybe a few jumping jacks and an occasional deep knee bend. But today, these drivers are very physically fit, as evidenced by Thomas Scheckter. And Thomas, I know that fitness training is a major part of your weekday regimen. How long do you train, and what kind of workouts do you go through?
Well, we train a lot. I think all drivers now have to. It's become extremely professional. We're professional athletes, and you know, a fit body is a fit mind, and that's what you need in a race car. And I think, you know, this morning I was in the gym for a couple of hours, and you know, most of these drivers are.
You guys are physically fit outside the car, but the Vision Racing team, all three drivers, you and Townsend Bell and Carpenter, have been awfully quick from the get-go here on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's been great, and you know, Townsend coming on board, and what a combination to come on with Rock Republic. It's super looking car, and we've got a lot of good feedback on what the car looks like, and to have it on all three cars, and to also for all three cars to be performing good is great. So, you know, definitely the Vision team is coming along a whole bunch, and just glad to be on board.
The first two times you came here, you led the most laps in the Indy 500 in both events, and yet never got a chance to win this race. What's it going to take for you to be able to finish here and possibly get that first win?
It's the Indy 500 for a reason. It's a tough race, and it doesn't come too easy for sure. I think after that first year, I thought, man, this is pretty easy halfway through when I had such a big lead. But it's a tough one, and I think it'll make it all the better once we do step into victory lane.
Hey, thanks for your time.
Thank you. I just want to see one thing. Look at this Rock Republic suit, and it's going to make its launch when qualifying starts. I'm not sure if it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, or maybe tomorrow, but hopefully we get to get this suit out here and going quick around the speedway.
Okay, good luck to you. By the way, more news coming out of the Vision Racing down here. We know that it's Ed Carpenter, Thomas Scheckter, and Townsend Bell, and we have been told that Tony George said that if there is a fourth car, that possibly Roberto Moreno would be in that fourth car, so we'll see what happens. They may be adding another car to this already very competitive team. Guys?
All right, thanks, Doc. As we go back and look at that old video, the clip I loved was when they're pulling out of pit lane and the riding mechanic's still hopping in. He's not even strapped in or anything. Let's talk about toughness. I mean, the races were still going, as we pointed out, over 5 hours. Is it tougher, Scott, racing back then or today?
Well, there's no doubt that the drivers today are great athletes, but you know, I look back in that era, I'm sort of glad that I drove in the era that I did. Those guys didn't really have safety equipment, they didn't have safety belts, they were ejected from the car. Those were the real heroes going around here for 5 or 6 hours along this brick racetrack, just being vibrated all the way around. But you know, the most important thing is they don't know any different. I mean, today we are much more thinking about the safety of our drivers and our crew members, and I'm glad that we're actually doing that.
Well, I'm glad I was racing in this era, that's for sure, but those guys were super tough. Can you imagine jumping in those cars, no seat belts, holding on to that baby, bouncing around in those bricks, sliding around, turning over? We saw a picture, one guy turned over and fell out. I mean, pretty tough racing back then, huh? But, you know, they didn't know any better.
That's true.
That was it.
Yeah.
And it was great racing, though. It got us to where we are now.
It truly was a test ground for the sport. One guy who has survived a lot of crashes and won a lot of times, we promised you before the commercial break, the legends of this great place. Well, we've got a 4-time winner, and he's with Jack Arute.
And in fact, Marty, there's a connection back to 1928. Not that Al Unser Sr. raced in 1928, but Frank Lockhart won the Indianapolis 500. And when he arrived at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that May, he had no ride. Well, back in 1987, the same thing happened to this man, Al Unser Sr. And it was thanks to Roger Penske finding out that you were looking for a ride in a midnight trip all the way back to Reading, Pennsylvania to the Sheraton Hotel that got you that Cummins diesel car.
That it did. You know, it's one of those deals. It's a dream come true. You know, you're a fairy story really, because you, as you said, Jack, that you'd never think that you could come here without a ride, and end up getting a ride and then able to win the race. It was a dream come true.
Can anybody else win 4 Indianapolis 500s? Is that era gone? You know, we talk about Barry Bonds chasing after Hank Aaron and chasing after Babe Ruth. What about that illustrious record here, 4 wins that you, AJ, and Rick Mears have?
I think the record will be broke, you know, and it's just going to take time. That's why all of you keep records, you know, is for things like this, for guys like you to ask that question. But yes, I think it'll be broken. You know, one day it'll come about that, you know, as several of us have said, well, you can't break my record. Well, that's why they keep track of all the records, and that's why it will happen one day, I think. And I just wished it was me.
I got to tell you guys a very quick story. Now, the motorhome area where we're at, Al Sr. is parked right next to his son, Al Jr. Al Jr. just came out here after watching one of our segments, guys, where you showed that it took Al Unser Sr. 51 races before he scored his first victory. Al Sr. came over and said, hey, you're the guy that took the longest. You got to get up on the pipe a little sooner.
Yeah, but I got the most, though.
He was quick to point that out, fellas.
And so did we. We pointed it out as well, as he's got 4 wins here, and there are the yard of bricks. We come back, we'll make a comparison between today's Indy car and today's Nextel Cup car. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. By Capital One on ABC Sports, brought to you by Capital One. What's in your wallet? The Home Depot. You can do it. We can help. And TD Ameritrade, the independent spirit. And back here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we have been postponed for a day. We'll try and do qualifying tomorrow. The weather just is not cooperating. We'll start at 12 noon on ESPN2. There is one of Richard Petty's car in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame Museum. We thought we'd give you a little comparison since we've got Rusty Wallace, it's got Goodyear, between a Nextel Cup car and today's Indy car.
Hey, Rusty, we had you drive one of these cars at Homestead earlier on, but let's talk a little bit of Indy car versus Cup car.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I had a good time, Scott, in Homestead driving that car with Hornish's car. It was awesome, man. It was fast. All right, Scott, I'll go one-on-one with you about a stock car versus an Indy car.
Well, Rusty, I got a sleek and sexy ride over here. I can see my own wheels up front here. The wind comes rushing over the front of the car inside the cockpit, sort of like natural cooling, if you will. My Honda engine produces 650 horsepower. My car only weighs 1,535 pounds. I think I've been on a diet compared to that big thing that you run.
Oh, man, I wish I could see my tires evidently, but I can't. My car's about 3,400 pounds. It makes about 850 horsepower if you're at an unrestricted racetrack. Now when we go to Talladega and Daytona and places like that where NASCAR's got restrictors on us, we're about 440 horsepower. That's about it.
How fast do you go?
Well, with 440 horsepower, we can get about 192 miles per hour to a place like Daytona or Talladega. A little while ago, you were talking about the weight. Your car weighs about 1,530 pounds. That's it?
That's it. Driver and car are thin and skinny, man.
I'd like to line you up about 3 or 4 wide at Talladega and see if we could how that thing can hold up. A little bump drafting going on.
I'd be out of the park.
I might bump your wing right off the back of that thing, right?
You're a kind driver. Let's go.
And as we take a look at the cost comparisons and some of the other comparisons that we have, Indy car versus a Cup car, if you were leasing your engine, that's what you see in red there in Indy car competition for 14 total races, it'd be about $1.3 million. For an entire Cup season, $3 million. So the price of going racing, pretty expensive no matter which way you look at it. And let's come back into the booth here. Time now for our Star Motorcycles Tech Report. And we've got the 2 different types of helmets because the aerodynamics are different for both cars. We'll start with you, Scott.
Well, we talked a little bit earlier on how this decade has been a lot safer than previous decades, and I'll tell you, this helmet here is made of Kevlar carbon fiber with a fireproof interior inside, and lots of innovative things have come over here in the last couple of years. Previously, when a car would crash into the wall, sometimes the helmet would get hit, and this visor would actually flip up. upon impact. So what they've done now with this impact helmet is they turn around and they put this locking device on here to keep the shield down so it will not flip up upon impact to the wall. And this safety strap that we have underneath here, the chin strap as we call it, they have some special bolts over here, Allen keys, that when the Delphi safety crew actually get to the accident scene, they can actually unscrew these screws here and take off this chin strap so they can then use this device here, which is called the hats off device. The Delphi crew simply put some air pressure in here. There's a bladder in the top of the helmet, which actually help lift the helmet off the driver's head, and so then they can get the car and the driver out of the car.
I tell you, Scott, I really do like that hats-off device. I think it's maybe a safety issue that NASCAR might look at, and also the unboltable chin straps. If a driver's in there and he's hurt, they can pull the bolts out, not even mess with them, just hit the hats off and bring it off. But I'll tell you what, our cars are very, very hot inside. They get real, real hot inside, and that's the reason we have this special cooling device on top of a NASCAR helmet. I can pump cold air into here. They're about 170, 180 degrees on the floorboard of these cars. So I like cooling the driver down. Also, the Hans clips are right here. This is where the Hans device clips on. Same thing with the Indy-style helmet. But the aerodynamics for us, not that important because we're inside of a cockpit of a car, Scott, so it's really not that big a deal for us.
Well, and actually that's one of these reasons that you see some of the bumps on the top of the helmet that we have is because when the driver's going along at 230 miles an hour, some of these bumps here help deflect the air up into the airbox to give the airbox a little bit more pressure to maybe make some more horsepower for the engines. And the other thing, too, is that these bumps sometimes help put force on the driver's helmet to keep the helmet on the driver's head, because as you're going along the straightaway at 225 or 30 miles an hour, there's this tendency to sort of have your helmet lift off your head. And if you don't get this right, it could be a long day in the cockpit, Marty.
Yeah, if you remember Rick Mears many, many years ago when he was a rookie, he actually had to hold on to his helmet. He forgot to strap it on. In fact, we may get to ask him about that because when we come back, Rick Mears will flash back to 1982 in a race that he was intimately close to. And who knows, we may ask him about that rookie year as well. Stay with us because we'll be back here on our ABC coverage of Indy Pole Day telecast presented by Capital One. Oh, that would go so close. Coverage of the NBA playoffs on ABC continues tomorrow with Game 4 between the Heat and the Nets. Tomorrow at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific, right here on ABC Sports, home of the NBA Finals. Action here at the Speedway has been postponed until noon tomorrow for Pole Day. You'll see it all on ESPN2. What you're looking at there is Gordon Johncock's Wildcat played a pivotal role in the 1982 race. We flash back with Jim McKay.
Sam, we've got a trophy dash to the finish line. If this stays this way, there's never been anything like it. The closest finish in the history of Indianapolis was in 1937, 2.16 seconds. There's Dina Mears. Her man is the man that's closing on the leader.
Yep. Look at Mears pour it on, Jim. I know when you're this close, I mean, you can reach out, you can feel that guy ahead of you. And look at Mears now. Here's Johncock taking a fairly moderate line, and Mears is catching. Look at his speed off that turn.
I've never seen anything like it. There they go. 2 laps to go. There's time to catch him if he can do it. Rick Mears, his wife. The stopwatch, 0.63 seconds between them.
I don't have to tell you what's going to happen if he catches him. It's going to be, I mean, this is extremely dangerous business right here.
I don't think I've ever seen an open-wheel car race with people this close at the finish.
No, and never so fast. I mean, these laps in the high 190.
Look at this.
Dina there. All right.
He may do it.
Yeah, he may. He's that close. Look at that shallow line.
They're going to get the white flag. There'll be 1 lap to go. As he moves along, is he going to do it? The white flag out. This is the final lap.
Going down into the first turn. What? No. Gordon held him off there going into that first turn.
Over the roar of the engines, you can hear the 400,000 people going hoarse.
All right.
No one has ever seen this before in Indianapolis.
This is the back straight, Jim. There's 2 turns to go now. Mears behind, and he's again trying to slipstream him.
Johncock did a good job of staying ahead of him in turn 1 when he made that move there.
Good. That was brilliant. That was brilliant.
Not quite over. Johncock still with the lead.
Here it comes
again. For the finish line. He's still closing. That's his wife.
It's too late now. You only got to pray. Look at that.
Here you see them. Mears. Can he make a move at the finish? He's making a move. No, not quite. Gordon Johncock has won the Indianapolis 500. He won it by less than Pat Patrick Pitts, Gordon Johncock has won it. He held on in the closest finish in the history of the Indianapolis 500. 66 races. Never anything like this. That's Roger Penske's wife, Kathy, consoling Tina Mears. Well,
what could you say to somebody after that?
I guess we did get carried away, Sam, but well, somebody else might be able to help it. I could.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Jim, it's the victory of a great racing driver who made a great racing move.
Let's look at that finish again. It looks like he's beaten at this point, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Coming out of the last turn.
Yep, there's nothing but frustration there.
Now watch this. Making the move as they come to the finish line. There's Mears moving up, and it was just a little over a car length, about 20 feet.
What happens so often when you see a situation like that as a race car driver is you wonder if you'll ever be given that opportunity again. For Rick Mears, though, the opportunities came, 4 Indianapolis 500 victories. But, Rick, your fondest memories about that day and that drive to second?
Well, I think just the fact that we were able to make up as much time as we did, and to be able to reel him in and catch him at the end and have a shot at it, you know, because not too long before that, it didn't even look like we had a shot. So to be able to reel him in, I was happy with the run on one hand, just for the simple fact I felt like we did all we could do. So in that respect, I was happy, but it would have been nicer to win it.
Rick Mears came here in 1978, a veteran, a lot of people said, of the off-road series and the Mears gang out in Bakersfield, California. And we talk all the time about rookies, and you counsel rookies now in your role with the Indy Racing League. Tell us a little bit about the rookie mistake that you made after the command to start engines was given and you began to roll off the grid.
Well, you know, we were fortunate enough to qualify on the front row as a rookie, so all the press, all leading up to is the rookie going to make a mistake, you know, on the start of the race. So I'd made up my mind I was not going to make a mistake. So I was going to stay relaxed, take my time, getting in the car and getting out to the pit lane and everything. And in all my being calm, I was a little late getting there. So now I was in a hurry getting ready to jump in the car, and I forgot to buckle my helmet. So didn't know it until about 3 laps into the race, and the helmet started going up, and the windows started moving up, and I couldn't see. So I'm holding the helmet down with one hand to see, you know, where I'm going, driving the car, and you know, my first race with Roger, I was a little embarrassed to call in on the radio and say, hey guys, you know, I got to stop and buckle my helmet. But you know, I called it in, and we kept going, you know, holding the helmet down, and fortunately caught a yellow. We were able to come in and get it buckled back up and take off. But.
And, of course, before you decided to hang up your helmet, you got those 4 Indianapolis 500 victories. I asked a fellow 4-time winner, Unser Sr., a little while ago, if he thought that there would ever be another 4-time winner. What do you think?
Well, I think there will be. You know, I think there can be. Helio has a pretty good jump on it right now. So, you know, he's got a good shot at it. And, you know, records are made to be broken. So I'm sure it can happen at some point.
We had a little fun with Unser Sr. talking about the 1920s and that, no, he was not here in the 20s. But Jamie Little is with someone that's been here for 6 decades.
One of the most dramatic finishes we've seen in Indianapolis 500 history was called by this man in 1982. Tom, take us back to that moment, that finish.
That was tremendous. Gordon Johncock, the veteran, former winner, against the youngster from California, Rick Mears. And with about 10 laps to go, Mears was trailing by 10 seconds. And the fans began to sense that something dramatic was going to happen. 9 laps to go. He would trail by 9 seconds. Got down to 1 lap to go, 1 second behind. Johncock still holding him off somehow. And I really think that Rick Mears had the faster car at that point, but he just couldn't get around him and get into first place. Everybody standing. Can you imagine 300,000 people up and cheering? And I'm getting excited. I just loved it, you know. To be able to call that, what tremendous theater that was. Coming down the home stretch, and it's Gordon Johncock, and the veteran wins it. And then I began to realize I'd never seen a finish that close. So I turned to George King, my assistant, and I said, George, call timing and scoring. Find out what the difference is. And he called them. They said, well, we don't keep track of that. And I said, how does 1600ths of a second sound to you? He said, go with it. Attention, everyone. It's a new track record. 1600ths of a second difference. John Cock wins. And then the next day I began to get worried. I just made it up, you know,
and it was a record that stuck until our very own Scott Goodyear came in and broke that record.
That's right. The record stood for 10 years. And then when Scott Goodyear broke it in 1992, 10 years later, I turned to my friend George and I said, you know, why didn't we just say 16 thousandths of a second instead of hundredths back then? We'd have still been record holders.
So Scott Goodyear can maybe thank you then, because it could have been a closer finish. Great memories. We love reflecting Tom Carnegie here for his 61st Indianapolis 500.
And I guarantee you that is a record that will not be broken. Stay with us tomorrow. We'll have Indianapolis 500 Pole Day coverage starting at noon Eastern. As we head to commercial break, we'll come back with more retrospective looks. Welcome back to our 90th Indianapolis 500 Pole Day telecast presented by Capital One here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. If you're just tuning in, I'm Marty Reid along with Scott Goodyear, Rusty Wallace, Jack Arute, Jerry Punch, Jamie Little, and Vince Welch, and our entire ABC crew. And Pole Day has been postponed because of the wet weather. We'll do it again tomorrow over on ESPN2 starting at noon Eastern and again at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So we've got a moment now. Let's test your Indianapolis IQ. We're going to text message your answer to the following question. How many years has the fastest qualifier not been on the pole? Is it 10, 14, 18, or 20? And all you have to do is dial 4ESPN. That's 43776. To vote, we'll give you the answers and the results a little bit later. All right, let's get you caught up. If you're just tuning in, take you back to what's happened so far this week. It was an emotional beginning to the week-long festivities. There was sunshine. No. It was the Andretti family going on the track. Mario on the outside. In the middle, son Michael. And Mario's grandson, 19-year-old Marco, on the inside for a ceremonial lap. When the speeds picked up, it was Sam Hornish that went to the front of the pack. Overall fastest practice lap at 2:26.798. Buddy Rice also had a problem this year, just like last year, hit the same wall in turn 2, but unlike last year, this crash isn't going to keep him out of the 500. He has got a few bumps and bruises, but he'll be ready to qualify if and when the weather gives us a break. And as you see, we take a look now at the fastest laps of the month. We haven't talked about some of these other guys. How about Koski Matsura? He has been very good all month long so far.
Marty, they unloaded off the trailer very, very quick. A very impressive run. We'll have to see if he still has the speed in it when the track opens up for qualifying. You can see the Andretti green guys there all sort of got together with Dario, Tony, and Brian Herta. They're still struggling for a little bit of speed. Maybe not a pole contender, but they'll be there very shortly thereafter.
And in the number 11 spot, Scott Sharp. He's sat on pole here before. Got a lap at 2:23, Rusty.
He looks real good right now. But we keep talking about Ganassi and Penske. I tell you what, these speeds are so close. Like I said earlier in the show, Tomas Scheckter, a real fast guy. You've got Vitor Mears driving the 4 car. He looks real strong out there. One of the strongest fields in a long time here at Marty.
And as you take a look at the rest of the practice speeds, mentioning Scott Sharp, Jerry has caught up with him.
And Marty, we are back in Motorhome Row, and Scott Sharp has been kind enough to invite us back inside, his motor coach here. And as we mentioned a moment ago, 2001 pole sitter here at over 226 miles per hour. Scotty, you've won the pole. Last year you sat on the front row. You've won the pit stop competition. Everything but the race. What's it going to take to get the big one?
Well, that's really what we've come here, Jerry, this month with the Delphi team and really tried to focus on. You know, we spent Tuesday and Wednesday just working nothing on but the race car, the race setup, and really haven't had the chance to take the downforce off and get into a qualifying type situation yet. You know, Thursday ended up being really windy. We decided not to run, and of course the last 2 days have been rained out. So we're anxious to see just exactly how much speed we have, but certainly our focus has been on the race.
We've seen a lot of speed out of the Penske teams and the Target Ganassi teams, but you and Kosuke Matsura, we showed Kosuke a moment ago, he was 5th quickest in the charts. You haven't trimmed out yet for the speed. What kind of speeds will we see tomorrow when they run for the pole? What do you think?
You know, it's hard to tell. It's so condition dependent. You know, Sam has really been the only guy that a couple days ago showed, you know, put a 4-lap qualifying run together and looked like he could run some pretty good speeds. You know, it looked like it was a solid, you know, close to 226 type 4-lap run. You know, that I can't see it being a lot faster than that, certainly. But for us, you know, we've been running about, you know, high 221s, that kind of range in race trim. Certainly we're expecting we're going to pick up a few mile an hour, so we'll have to see exactly what we have.
We talked to some of the veteran drivers. They say Indianapolis is very difficult. The month of May is tough, but there's nothing we do in a race car as tough as pole day. It's the stressful thing a driver does. How is that?
It is tough. You know, it's you get the car to the point that it's just really edgy. It's really, you know, so low in downforce. It's almost floating through the corner, trying to get the maximum speed out of it. And you know, you've got to put 4 together. It's not just like holding your breath for 1 lap. And it's got to be a car that the tires can hang in there at least for those 4 laps. So it's tough, no doubt. Hopefully you get to the point that you've had a little bit of practice, you're somewhat comfortable. It's going to be interesting here because I think there are a fair amount of guys, including ourselves, who haven't gotten really into that final qualifying trim. And it's not like you've got a couple hours that you can work your way into it. I mean, you've got basically a half an hour practice if it ends up being tomorrow morning or Monday morning or whenever it is. And you got to go. So it's going to be exciting.
Well, you've done it before. Good luck in pole qualifying tomorrow. Scott Sharp and the Delphi Fernandez team will be running for the pole, as will all the rest of the field at 12 noon on Sunday. Marty?
All right, thanks, Doc. You know, we heard Scott mention pole possibly around 226. Last year's pole was 227.5. And we come back, that's Little Al in that close finish. We'll focus. Let's look ahead to next Sunday because drivers will have one last chance to qualify for the greatest spectacle in racing. We'll be back here at the Brickyard for complete coverage of Bump Day presented by Capital One. It begins at 1 Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here on ABC, home of the Indianapolis 500. You know, we talk about the Unser family and the Andrettis, and they dominate the history of this place so much. Take a look at the statistics here with the number of starts between Al Sr., Bobby, and Al Jr., the number of wins, a total of 9. Just incredible performance numbers by all 3 in the Unser clan. But it's been a life and ups and downs for that man right there, Al Unser Jr. He had a very candid conversation with our Rusty Wallace on what Indy means to him and how he put his life back together.
It's hard to put into words what Indy means to me. I mean, with all the pressures of Uncle Bobby and Dad, all of their success here, you know, wanting to follow the family legacy and the heritage and all that kind of stuff. Being a little boy growing up wanting to emulate my father.
Little Al wins by just a few tenths of a second.
You just don't know what Indy means.
What a lucky man he was.
They were the dreams of a child coming true.
The dream didn't come easily, as a decade of close calls and heartbreak kept Al Jr. out of victory lane.
I remember going home a lot of days after this race going, man, I'm never going to win this thing, you know. To win here and just to be successful here is, you know, it just, you don't know what it means. Eh?
Ooh, what a lucky man he was.
Dominating in 1992, Al Jr. won again 2 years later. But in 95, the unthinkable happened. Both Penske cars failed to qualify for the Indy 500.
You know, when I won the first year, it's hard to put into words, and now it's really hard to put into words what missing the show is about. The tears started coming before I even got into the garage, and then once I got into the garage and I saw my mom, you know, it all let loose. I mean, you know, it was crushing.
What do you think they did to you personally?
It affected me pretty big, quite honestly, personally, because 96, the split came. Each May would roll by, and it would just work on me more and more and more, that little bit, you know. Pretty soon, I didn't have nothing inside me, nothing.
You're feeling empty, you're feeling confused. What'd you do to fill that void?
I tried everything. I mean, wine, women, and song. I mean, anything I could get my hands on to fill this void.
Al Jr. continued to battle personal demons, and in July of 2002, he was arrested in Indianapolis on the charge of domestic violence.
You know, to let you know, stuff go like that was just it was a shame, embarrassment.
What was the motivation to turn your life around and get back on track?
Waking up in that jail. There's you could call it hitting bottom. That was hitting bottom.
What do you got to prove to yourself?
That racing wasn't something that just happened to me, you know. I mean, I fell in love with the sport, and I loved it from a child. And you know, you can take the boy out of the races, but you can't take the racing out of the boy. And that is what has happened with me. And I just, you know, I'm out here, I'm having so much fun, and life is really, really terrific.
I hope you'll forgive me a second. That's a rookie reporter. Very, very nice job there, man. That's your first time at it. Let me ask you something, though. You spent all that time with him. Is he, one, physically back? Two, is he mentally back, being able to go out on that track?
Absolutely. He's mentally back. He's a champion. He belongs here. He's physically fit. He looks great. I'm a big fan of Al Jr. I think it's tragic that he hasn't been here for a long, long time, because I think he's one of the best drivers in the country. He can drive stock cars. He can drive Indy cars. He can drive off-road cars. It's mind-boggling that he hasn't been here all the time. I told him earlier in the interview we did, which you didn't play right there, but, you know, Al Jr. not being in the field was like Dale Earnhardt Sr. not being in the field. Those two drivers are almost the same quality in my mind. Wonderful drivers, a lot of capability. It was just a tragic thing. Look, he made a mistake. He paid for it. He's back in the saddle again. We're all pulling for him. The whole world's pulling for him. I think it's one of the biggest comeback stories in the world, Marty. It's a really great story, and I think Al is just a fabulous driver. I guess you can tell that I'm a fan of his.
All right, let's check in with Jack Arute.
The biggest comeback story in the world. Well, there's a little bit more to the comeback story, though, Al. It was your wife, Gina, that threw you out of the house, right? And said, get back in the cockpit.
Pretty much. I mean, you know, we were watching TV last summer and just watching the races, and I was yelling at the TV, and finally there in the fall, September, October, you know, there I am screaming at the TV again, and Gina came walking in and said, "You need to get in a car." And so she gave me the boot and said, "Go to work." So here we are.
And I haven't seen you this light of step and as excited. You said to someone the other day you felt like a 21-year-old all over. How about this Geico special?
It's doing well. You know, we put the deal together very last minute. You know, and the Reinbold Racing team is a great team, and so the guys are working hard, and they put me out on the track on opening day. It really wasn't all the whole car together, and so, you know, we've actually welcomed this rain because it gives us time to work on our car and get it better, and it keeps the competitors off of the track. So it's been good so far.
An Unser, always thinking, guys. You know, Geico is a sponsor. You know, they have the little gecko. Can you do the robot?
I can't do the robot. I can't do no robot.
Goodbye. Guys.
All right. I think he's being a little kind to his Dreyer and Reinbold team, because I want to ask you, Scott. I mean, he's 26th on the speed charts. Buddy Lazier, another former winner here, the 96 winner here. He's 28th on the speed charts. They're both in the 218 range. Is it more them or is it more the car?
Well, there's no doubt drivers don't forget how to drive, but I think, as I said about Michael earlier on the other show, you're a different driver when you're 20, when you're 30, and when you're 40. And you have to eat, breathe, and sleep this business. If you don't, I think it's going to be very difficult to go out there and get on the pipe, as they call it, to drive very quickly, not only in qualifying, but also in race traffic. So it's going to be very interesting to sort of see how that develops over here in the next week or so. You got to get out there, start running with traffic, and get the feel for the car again. So I'm a big Al Jr. fan also, just like Rusty. But you know something? I also wonder, if he didn't have those personal problems, how many more 500s would he have won? Because he certainly is a great driver.
Well, the what of, could have, what might be, who would know? We have to head towards commercial break. We've talked about what Indy means. You heard Al Jr. say what it means to him. What's it mean to some of the other greats at this storied speedway? Stay with us.
Well, you just don't know what Indy means.
It means coming down the front straightaway going into turn one. Just the long straightaway, the speed, the excitement of it all.
It's hard just to say one word. Well, what is Indy for you? Amazing. When you come here, you have to come here to know what is Indy.
And when you think Indianapolis 500, you think emotional, you think milk, you think tradition, history, atmosphere at the Speedway.
Speed, courage, American history, a lot of different drivers. The same play that's played out, and every time just different people, different actors.
It's not one thing. It's a combination of a lot of things that we race to be able to win races and to break records and to be part of history. And Indianapolis is history.
Unfortunately, no real blue skies and nobody in the stands because the pole day has been postponed until tomorrow. We'll do it at 12 noon over on ESPN2. But our coverage here on the 90th running of Indianapolis 500 pole day, telecast presented by Capital One, will continue because this place is special. We want to give you an idea of just how big this place is. Here's Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, what could you fit inside the 2.5-mile oval? How about Yankee Stadium and Bristol Motor Speedway? Rusty knows that place very well. Madison Square Garden would fit in there. So would the Rose Bowl. And if we could move the Roman Coliseum, it, along with Churchill Downs, would all fit inside the 2.5-mile oval. How many seats are here? Jamie, are you counting?
Oh, I don't think so. We left that to Kurt Cavan actually 2 years ago from the Indianapolis Star. He actually hand counted every single seat. And the exact number? 257,325. Now, that's actual seats, but on race day, with all the yellow shirts, with all of us media, there's about 300,000. Now, over my shoulder, you're looking at the very first seats. You see that high roof over there? They've been rebuilt, but they were originally built in 1909. And, of course, they've added hundreds of thousands of seats since the early days, the first race in 1911. A lot of bodies fit in here, guys, and of course, it is the largest sporting facility in the world. And it will be full on May 28th, I should say. Marty?
And of course, it is the single largest one-day sporting event in the world, the Indianapolis 500. That's a view back in the Hall of Fame Museum. When we come back, we'll dip into the history book again, and we'll take a look at the decade of the 60s. Back here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, pole day has been postponed until tomorrow. You will see all the action on ESPN2 starting at noon Eastern and again at 6 Eastern. Again, it'll be on ESPN2 tomorrow, and hopefully the weather clears. All right, let's test your Indy 500 IQ. We asked this question a little bit earlier. How many years has the fastest qualifier not been on the pole? Gentlemen, I want your answers. Scott, you're up first.
Well, I may have got the previous one correct, but I'm going to have to take a stab at this one. I don't know the stat. I'm going to say B14.
B14. What about you, Rusty?
Oh, I'll say A10.
A10. The correct answer is... You're both wrong. 18 times. The fastest qualifier has not been on the pole. These guys are high-fiving each other, and they're both wrong. What the heck?
We both stunk.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about what's going to be coming up next. 1960s. As we take a look back into the decade, and there is the Hall of Fame Museum. Let's bring in Vince.
Well, thank you very much, Marty. The 1960s could be referred to as the Foyt decade. A.J. Foyt won 3 of his 4 Indianapolis 500-mile races during the decade of the 1960s. This car was the machine he drove to victory in 1964, and it was the last front-engine car to reach victory lane at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But the decade began with one of the greatest two-man battles ever. Let's go back in Brickyard history, circa 1960.
The 1960s, a decade of technical change, foreign invasion, and the coming out party for many of the Speedway's biggest stars. The 8 winners of this era created names that still resonate within the Brickyard. With the most lead changes ever in the Indianapolis 500, Jim Rathman's defeat of Roger Ward in 1960 set the pace for a decade of fierce competition.
Here they come down the main straightaway for the world's fastest flying start.
Ward's revenge would come in 1962, when his victory made him a two-time winner. 1963 pole sitter Parnelli Jones also showed his fierce side as he battled an oil leak in the final 40 laps to win his only Indy 500 title. But perhaps no one was more fierce than A.J. Foyt, who would visit victory lane 3 times in 7 years. His first win in 1961 was also the last on the front stretch bricks, which would be covered in asphalt the next year. Foyt's 1964 victory was also the last by a front engine car. The win, however, would be bittersweet.
There has been a spectacular crash, almost at the head of the main stretch.
As a crash on the second lap took the lives of Dave McDonald and Eddie Sachs. For the first time, the 1967 race lasted 2 days. Once the rain delays were over, A.J. Foyt emerged from a last lap crash.
A.J. Foyt will win the Indianapolis 500 in an incredible, thrilling finish.
Foyt became the only man to win in both a front and rear engine car. While Foyt was the only man to win in both, Jim Clark set the stage with his 1965 win as the first winner to drive to victory lane in a rear engine car. Among the 33 drivers that year was rookie Mario Andretti, who would win his only Indy 500 4 years later in 1969.
And here's the checkered flag, Mario Andretti, winner of the 1969 500-mile race.
Hold it, we have a terrible accident on the main stretch.
Crashes, black flags, and only 7 cars running at the end. Englishman Graham Hill's 1966 win was anything but boring. And while he didn't know it at the time, Bobby Unser's 1968 victory would be the first in a career that would span 3 decades.
It's interesting to note that Parnelli Jones turned the first 150-mile lap in qualifying, and just 3 years later, Jim Clark's average speed for the race was over 150 miles per hour. What a great decade. And as mentioned earlier, the 60s, well, that belonged to Foyt. He won in this car in 1967, and when he did, he became the only driver to win the Indy 500 in front engine and rear engine cars. Jack?
Vince, in the 60s was my first chance to ever come to the Indianapolis 500. My late father took me here as a graduation present from high school. I missed my regular graduation and sat up in those seats, the Paddock Penthouse seats, right here at the front straightaway in 1969. Of course, 1969 was filled with a lot of memories for me. As Tony Kornheiser of PTI and ESPN once told me, the success of a sport is based upon the way it is passed, the passion for it from one generation to the other. And that's what my dad did for me that day as I watched Mario Andretti win his only Indianapolis 500, see the first and only kiss of a winner in victory lane from another man, his car owner, Andy Granatelli. The things that stand out from 69, though, to me, were the likes of Leroy Yarborough failing to start when the command came and trying to carve his way back to his starting spot when they dropped the green flag. Or right here, just behind me, Lloyd Ruby, who was well on his way to his only Indy 500 victory, only to be over-anxious in the final stop and rupture both of the gas tanks and find all of his Indy dreams draining out onto the concrete. Those are some of the memories from 1969. And since then, Dr. Jerry Punch, this place has been filled with memories for me.
And likewise here, Jack. You know, in 1969, Mario Andretti, who won that race, was lucky to even be walking around on race day. Remember, earlier in that month, he had wrecked his primary car, a turbocharged four-wheel drive Lotus, in a fiery crash. In fact, when they made the front row photograph, he had his twin brother Aldo sit in for him because he didn't want to be photographed with the burns on his face. But on race day, Mario Andretti in the older Bronner Hawk came out with a vengeance, and he had a destiny to win that race. And Andretti said in the final few laps, the water temperature began creeping up and up and up. And while he was being smooched by Andy Granatelli there in victory lane, the crew was taking the car back to examine. And when Mario got back, there was no transmission fluid whatsoever in the gearbox. He was a half a lap away from not finishing the Indy. But on that day, it was Mario Andretti's destiny to win the Indianapolis 500. Guys?
All right, thanks, Jack. You know, as you look at Mario Andretti's car right there back in the Hall of Fame Museum, that photo of his rookie year, 1965. It looks an awful lot like Marco today. If you're just tuning in, we welcome you to our postponed Pole Day coverage as we're here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway along with Rusty Wallace, Scott Goodyear. I'm Marty Reid. You've also heard from the rest of our pit crew, Jamie Little, Jack Arute, Dr. Jerry Punt, Vince Welch. It's been an eventful day for us, and hopefully it's been good for all of you that have stuck with us because we've been chronicling all this history. Let's stay on the 1960s a bit, guys. Talk a little bit about the foreign invasion, because there was a period there where it was all American drivers from the early days where we had a number of foreigners come on over and race in the 500. And now all of a sudden here comes Jimmy Clark and Graham Hill.
You know, and you talk about that foreign invasion. I can remember reading an article about Jackie Stewart, and he said, you know, I'm not so sure that we were better drivers when we came over here than the Americans. I just think that we knew how to actually set up these rear-engine cars because we had experience with those type of vehicles. So he said, we weren't better drivers. Maybe we just had a little bit better equipment or better knowledge of equipment, and maybe that's why they went through that period of foreign drivers really doing very well.
Well, there was also a revolution in pit stops because it was Jimmy Clark who had the Wood brothers pitting his car, and you know about the Wood brothers.
Oh, I do know about the Wood brothers. Wood brothers, incredibly fast pit crew. When they came here and pitted that car, they put a pit stop on these guys that they'll never forget. You know, you talk about the different drivers coming from around the country. You know, it really kept everybody up on their toes. They might come from England or Germany or wherever. But, you know, when you are used to playing in your own sandbox all the time and cats from all around the country come to play with you, it tends to rise the cream to the top. And back then, I look at all the different drivers. I think it was good for the sport. But one thing I really loved so much, Marty and Scott, was the look of the cars. The cars were such cool-looking cars, and I especially liked that number 2 car that won that race that year.
The number 2. No,
the number 2. I like the number 2. I thought the number 2 looked good out there, didn't you?
Can't imagine why. Let's check in with Jamie Little.
Well, Marty, the rain is starting to come down right now, but we're talking about tradition, and no matter what race you see in Victory Lane since 1936, you see the driver drink milk. So people say, what the heck are these drivers drinking milk for when they get out of a car after 3 hours racing? Well, I'll tell you right now, the tradition started in 1936. A driver by the name of Louis Meyer won his 3rd race. Now, he came into Victory Lane, said, I'm thirsty, and by habit, they handed him buttermilk. That's what he drank on a regular basis. His mom told him that it would refresh him. So he drank the milk. The next day, the photos came out in the paper. The Dairy Association saw that, and they said, we love it. We vow we're going to make this a tradition at the 500. Now, almost every single race, there's been a few in between that the drivers did not drink the milk, but it has been a tradition here. And once the driver gets here, they actually have an option now, guys. You know, in this health-conscious era we're in now, they get either whole milk, 2%, or skim. So they get the option, they take the milk, and it's the best sip of milk of their life, and they get a bottle similar to this. The original is just a little bit bigger, but as we've seen in so many of the videos and the photos, it's definitely a tradition here at the Indianapolis 500.
Jamie, we got to work on them. My favorite is chocolate milk, huh? If we're going to have options. We've got to take a break. When we come back, we'll have more for you with Helio Castroneves right after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
911
Back here to our Indianapolis Pole Day telecast presented by Capital One. That view you're looking at is part of Brickyard Crossing. It's a golf course with 4 of the holes inside the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And yes, it's open to the public. And yes, you can get tee times, but don't try and get one on race day. Forget about it. It's going to be a little noisy. And let's talk a little bit more about Helio Castroneves. Right now he is leading the points, and you can see that in 69 starts he now has 9 wins, 12 poles, 39 top 5s, and of course he has won this race twice. And for more on Helio, let's go to Jamie Little.
That's right, Marty. And you know, all the drivers say when you go to Japan, the race right before the Indianapolis 500, and you win it, you have more momentum than anybody else coming into this race. He is the man right now. He is the favorite for the pole, and he's one of the favorites to win the race, which would be his 3rd 500. We had a chance to go down and visit with him at his home in Miami and see just how big he's living.
Thank you, Jamie. Nice little visit down there in the nice, warm Florida sun with Helio Castroneves. I am with Sam Hornish, 2-time IRL IndyCar Series champion and winningest driver in the history of the series. 14 victories, but Sam, none of them have come here. You've had your troubles at this place. Now, I'm told you've got a different approach this year to Indy. What is it?
Over the past couple of years, I've always came in here, how do I win this race? And I decided something. I haven't finished all 200 laps, 500 miles of it. So I decided, okay, how do I just finish 500 miles? Because I think if I do that, I'll probably be in the top 5. And if I can do that, then maybe we'll have a chance there to win at the end. But it's just all about making it to the end of the race and trying to get some good points. And I figure I haven't been approaching it the right way, so maybe something new will work.
You've had a very good beginning here to the month of May. Every time we put speeds up on the racetrack this week, your name's at the very top of the column, and you are the quickest time of the month. Speed, I should say, 226.789 miles per hour. How comfortable are you in the car at that speed, and is there more left?
I think there definitely is some more left. We're real comfortable right now. It depends on the amount of time that we actually get out onto the track before qualifying to see if qualifying speeds would be more than that. But I'm really excited about our opportunities, and I think that there's definitely a little bit more left in the car.
We've heard some speculation, even from some of the guys in your team, that maybe 227.5, 228.5. Someone even said maybe 229. Given the right conditions tomorrow, if we're able to get qualifying in on Sunday, is 229 reachable?
It's hard to tell. Every time I say a number, Helio goes a little bit higher, so I keep raising it to see if he'll say 230 one of these times. But no, I think that right now 226.8 is our fastest time. I think that we're real close with that, and I think depending on weather conditions, you could see a little bit more on a real calm day. I think you might see a 228.5 to 229, but it's got to be just about a perfect day for that.
Final question to you. You came to this team for Roger Penske because he's been so successful at Indianapolis. What would winning this race at the end of this month mean to Sam Hornish Jr.?
I don't know if I could put it into words what it would mean, but one of the first things that Roger said when I joined the team is, my goal for you is to win the Indy 500. He has I think a lot of drive for me to be able to do that, for me to be able to achieve that. He knows that it means a lot to me, and I don't know. I'll probably be a worse interview than I am normally if I ever do that, because I won't be able to speak, or I might just not be able to shut up, one of the two, so we'll have to wait and see.
Hey, Roger normally gets what he wants, and I think he might have a good shot at getting one this year, and I'd love to be able to do that interview if you win it here at the end of May. Good luck this month.
Thank you.
Sam Hornish Jr., quickest of the month of May, and hoping to get his first win here in the 90th running of the greatest spectacle, guys.
Well, Roger Penske has 13 wins as a team owner. That was the car that won it, his first one. That was the car driven by Mark Donohue. We're going to take another break, but don't go anywhere, because when we do come back, we'll talk to Danica Patrick. It's Mother's Day tomorrow, and she's going to share with us some of the close relationship she has with her mom, Bev Patrick. Back here at Indianapolis, where our Pole Day telecast presented by Capital One. Well, Pole Day's going to be tomorrow, folks. The weather just has not cooperated. If you're just joining us, you'll see all that action tomorrow at 12 noon on ESPN2. Earlier in the week on Tuesday, this was a great moment. We've shown you a lot of ceremonial moments. It was all 6 former champions that are trying to qualify for this year's field in formation, and one of them in that field is our 96 winner, Buddy Lazier. He's with Dr. Jerry Punch.
And Marty, most former series winners are race winners we've had since 2002. And Buddy Lazier, every time you walk in the gates here, you got to reflect back to that great win in 1996 when you just somehow are able to gut out the pain of all those fractures in your lower back.
Yeah, it was a great moment for me. It was accomplishing a dream. It was everything you ever expect it to be and more. Winning the Indy 500, but really I don't think about that much. The times that I've won in racing, the things that haunt me, the things I always go to sleep thinking about, and that I always remember when I walk in the gate are my runner-ups. Second place in '98, second in 2000. We've had many top fives. I think it's 5 or 6 or 7 of them. So what really, I think what grabs your attention and really gets you is not the wins, because when you've won, you've accomplished what you want to do. You put that on the shelf. It's those second places that when you were just 3 seconds away from accomplishing a win again.
Well, tonight, what do you go to sleep thinking about with Pole Day coming up tomorrow, and the Dreyer and Reinbold team working very, very hard to get you up to speed? What are your thoughts about running for the pole tomorrow and trying to get that car qualified here in the first day?
Well, last year we had a strong program and everything was really organized, and we were a legitimate candidate for the pole. And so you go to bed in an environment like that probably differently than I do this year. We're with a new team, Dreyer and Reinbold Racing, and this team is not as fully developed yet, and there's a lot of new guys. And so really it's a different role I'm playing this year. The role now is to try to help this team ramp up to where we have a chance to win. And there are a bunch of good guys, and so I have more work to do to get ready for the race than I do for the qualifying like I did last year. So I probably have an entirely different mindset this year than I did last year, and it's just because I have a different equipment coming from a different position.
Well, last year in the race, folks, this guy was remarkable. He put 3 different front wing sections on his car and still managed to finish 5th in the Indy 500. So watch him on race day. Qualifying, we don't know about, but race day, Buddy Lazier should be a factor. Guys?
He has been very good here, as you could tell. He talked about the number of times he's been a runner-up in his prior 13 starts. Top 5 finishes, a total of 5 of them. That's how good he really is. We're coming back.
Times Square Studios. I'm Dan Patrick with Mark Jackson.
Well, thanks, Lisa. That's one great thing about the NBA. You don't have to worry about being postponed by rain, I guess, unless the roof leaks, and we haven't heard any problems like that. Inside the Hall of Fame Museum, the roof doesn't leak there. All of those cars, Indianapolis 500 race winners. What about the favorite drivers? What about the men and women of this year's 500? Who do they have as their favorite winners?
My dad, I mean, he was always my hero, you know. I mean, he was the best. And if you look at, you know, pure racing driver and pure racing, nobody's ever achieved what he's achieved.
AJ, I mean, the guy can drive anything, and he won in anything.
Here he is, AJ Foyt.
Senna, which is just because he was the best at the time.
Look at Senna, though. Oh, he's down the inside. Flashes down the inside.
Jacques Villeneuve was probably the guy that I liked the most.
The 79th Indy 500 has been won by Jacques Villeneuve.
And I just thought, wow, that guy must be that good, that he can just do so well and move so quickly.
I always looked up to my father and grandfather. I always said it, if I can be, you know, as good as them, that I think I've made it.
Well, when you talk about favorite drivers, this man, Ed Carpenter, actually renovated an apartment and a house where A.J. Foyt, one of the favorite drivers, used to spend some of his months of May. But let's talk about this chill factor out here. We're starting to chatter. Ed Carpenter with us here. Ed, this Vision Racing team and the Rockin' Republic Specials are just really starting to rock and roll out there. But if you don't have a legitimate shot at the pole, what do you set the bar at when you come into second day?
Well, I mean, originally, before all this weather, we wanted to be in the top 11, and I thought we were very capable of doing that. I mean, obviously, the pole's going to be tough with Penske's and Ganassi's. They've just looked so strong. But, you know, we were wanting to have all 3 cars in the top 11. So now I don't know if there's going to be top 11 or if we're just going to qualify 22. So I'm not really sure what the format's going to be now.
I think when you take a look, though, at this starting field, and you've been here for a couple of years now and certainly grew up around here and know a lot of the Indy 500 lore, is this a field that you could categorize as one way or the other, most competitive, least competitive? You know, how do you look at this starting field for the 90th?
It's competitive. I mean, when you're talking about the top 11 qualifying, when we were looking at that, I mean, you know, you can have a hard time being top 15, even 20 right now. I mean, obviously Penske and those guys are quick right now for qualifying, but when it comes to the race, I mean, I think it could be up for anyone.
Ed, you got a new teammate, and he's over there just on the other side, and he got Jamie Little. You got stuck with me.
That's all right. I like you, Jack.
All right, Jamie.
Well, thanks a lot, Jackie. Yes, Rockin' Republic, we're going to explain it because we've heard about it from Thomas Scheckter, Ed Carpenter, and now Townsend Bell. You are our model. Rockin' Republic is a denim company, obviously coming on board for their first 500. Vision Racing got you guys. You guys actually wear Rockin' Republic. It's actually a great brand, but they're supporting you to be here in your first 500.
Yeah, for sure. It's cool. I mean, Thomas already said he bought a couple pairs of jeans prior to the sponsorship, but no, we're happy to have them on board. They're a hot up-and-coming fashion company, and should be fun. The car looks cool.
All right, Townsend Bell, we're going to make it sure we got to get out of here. He's in the number 90. He's one of 5 rookies this year for the Indianapolis 500. Marty.
And he's the 18th fastest so far and second in the qualifying order. And here's our schedule for tomorrow, pole day. We will qualify 22 cars starting at noon.
I was going to say Unser Jr., but he's back. And I would say Rick Mears and AJ Foyt.
I think it'd be pretty cool to go up against all the Indy 500 winners that drove for Roger.
Mears is one of the guys. AJ Foyt is another guy. I'm sure it would be really rough to side by side with him.
Certainly, from an aggressive perspective, you know, AJ and Mario. I mean, I think any day you could beat those two, you'd be probably the best of that era.
I think I've run against the guys that I really, always looked up to. I can say I've run against AJ, Al, Rick, some of the biggest names, the ones that have won the most.
I guess I would have to say my father. And I guess my dream's coming true in May.
And let's get Scott Goodyear and Rusty Wallace's opinion here. Who would you like to race against most?
Well, I had a chance to race against A.J. Foy, who I always idolized because he drove so many cars and won on so many different tracks with those cars. But I think the one person would be Gilles Villeneuve, who was the father of Jacques Villeneuve, who won here in 1995. Formula One driver, terrific driver.
What about you, Rusty?
I'll tell you, Marty, I've had the opportunity to race a bunch of great drivers, whether it's Earnhardt or Allison or A.J. Foy. I've raced with all of them, but one fellow I never got to race with, which I always wanted to, was Rick Mears. Rick, I've always thought about Rick Mears and just enjoyed the way he drove.
All right, let's check in now with Dr. Jerry Punch.
Well, Marty, every hour around the world, 200 children die from the consumption of unsafe drinking water. That's almost 25,000 a day. Now, next year, 1 week after the Indianapolis 500, a relay will begin right here with 14 runners that will run around the world to draw awareness to this serious problem. In fact, Team Panther Racing is running the decal here. Blue Planet Run is what it's called. It's the hope to be able to generate funds a year from now so that these young children who are dying in Africa and all over the world from cholera and dysentery will be able to have safe drinking water. How many IndyCar teams want to take something? This team needs a sponsor, a primary sponsor, but this is a prime example of Team Panther and Vitor Meira trying to give back by drawing awareness to next year's Blue Planet Run. Guys?
Great story, Doc. We've got to take another commercial break, and as we do that, we want to thank all the drivers, because remember, the track closed a little after 2 this afternoon. They've all been nice enough to hang around and talk with us as we progress through the day. Stay with us. Indianapolis 500 Pole Day telecast presented by Capital One on ABC Sports, brought to you by Capital One. What's in your wallet? Star Motorcycles. We build it, you make it your own. And Scott's Turf Builder with +2 weed control for a beautiful weed-free lawn. And this is our schedule for tomorrow, as you'll be able to tune in on ESPN2. It will be pole day as we were rained out today. We'll have all the action on ESPN2 starting at noon Eastern and again at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Now let's talk a little bit about the qualifying format for tomorrow, because you'll get 3 attempts per car, and instead of 11 cars going in, we will take the top 22 fastest cars. They will qualify, with the fastest qualifier earning the pole position tomorrow here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Take a look now at the qualifying order, and we'll see the name Jeff Buckman coming up first. Probably not going to see him. He hasn't been out all week. He's a second weekend qualifier. Townsend Bell or Vitor Meira could be the first there, guys.
Definitely Townsend Bell would probably be going out in his primary car. Vitor maybe in his primary car also. Marty Roth hasn't really found some speed. The one I'll look for, though, is Al Unser Jr. to see what kind of speed he can pull off.
And as you continue through the order, guys, there's 2 things I want to point out that really surprised me. There's only 3 teams that have pulled out T-cars, backup cars, and put them out on the track. Team Penske with both of their machines, and Vitor Meira. Everybody else is committed to their primary car. If they've got a problem, then they're going to have to go back, figure out what to do with that T-car, and they haven't even had a practice lap on it.
And let's add one thing onto that, Marty. Because of the rule change this year, you cannot have a spare engine in your T-car. So if you do have to change, you actually have to take the engine out of your primary car, put it into your T-car, go back through tech. That's a 90-minute process.
Let's check in now with Dr. Jerry Punch for a final thought.
Marty, rarely in sports does an athlete ever get a chance to experience an event that could change their lives forever. But if you're a race car driver, tomorrow is just one of those events. The run for the pole for the Indianapolis 500. Drivers dream about coming here, maybe being the fastest of the fast. We'll find out at 12 noon on Sunday when we wave the green for qualifying. Now, if you win the pole, your name will be remembered forever. But if somehow you win the race, your legend will always be secure. It is those days that athletes dream about, and it all begins tomorrow with a run for the pole here at Indianapolis for the 90th running of the Indianapolis 500.
We always talk about pole day being the first race within the race. Well, let's take one more flashback, because we've got just enough time to squeeze this one in. This was a great one. I remember it well. 1991, the outside passes going down the stretch between Michael Andretti and Rick Mears.
The green flag is back out. And Rick Mears comes around John Andretti. He's no factor whatsoever, but Michael is right there with him. Michael moving to the outside. Can he keep in the high groove? He did it in Phoenix. Can he do it here? Michael Andretti takes the lead away from Rick Mears. Wow!
That's one of the toughest passes I've ever seen. A short shoot pass with two cars running nearly the same speed. I'll just bet you that Rick Mears thought that would have been impossible, and I just can tell you he never, ever looked for Michael to go that way.
That is sheer virtuosity by Michael Andretti, Bobby. Don't you agree? That was an incredible
That was one of the finest pieces of driving, one of the hardest pieces of driving I've seen. And Sam, it's very difficult to pass somebody on the outside like that, and especially a car that's just as fast.
And from Bobby Unser's point of view, a position on the track that he was not expected. But here is Rick Mears now in the same position as Mears, who has been driving a very different line. This race takes Michael Andretti 187 laps into the record book. The fight is at the front.
Our hats off to him now. If you ever see racing better than that, I'd certainly like to know where it's going to be.
Well, Rick Mears joined the list of four-time winners at the Indianapolis 500. Al Unser, A.J. Foyt are the only other two.
And he would go on to win the race, and I still get goosebumps every time I say it because you're not supposed to be able to do that. What can we expect? Let's talk a little bit about Michael, guys. Rusty, first up, what can we expect from Michael Andretti tomorrow as he makes his return?
Well, he's very, very optimistic. He seems like he's really prepared. He's happy with his car. He's got the Honda horsepower just like everybody else. So he's got all the pieces and parts to get the job done. And I really feel like he's ready for it. I mean, I thought maybe it took a little for him to get warmed up, but his teammates say he's ready. So, hey, he's looking good to me.
Scott?
Marty, I think what's going to happen is that Michael's going to go out there and try and get the car comfortably in the field. Probably won't be on the front row. He almost admits that to himself. If he can be in row 2, row 3, he'll be setting his car up for the race. You can sort of see that in him. He knows he doesn't have the speed, not only with the car, and maybe even with himself, to run for the pole.
Now, earlier in the day, you guys disagreed whether he could win the race. You want to reiterate those positions just for all the people tuned in late?
I've said it many times. I don't think you're the same driver when you were in your 20s or in your 30s. I think you certainly slow down. If it's a shootout at the end, I don't know that Michael Andretti is going to be able to really come up on top of the pipe to be able to get it done. We'll have to wait and see. I know that you have a certain different opinion.
I disagree with you. I think the older you are, the smarter you get sometimes, and you doubt that knowledge. You need to get the job done. He's only in his mid-40s. I think that Michael still can win this race.
All right, we want to remind you that the next time we'll see you on ABC will be Bump Day, and that will be Sunday, May 21st. Our Indianapolis 500 Bump Day telecast presented by Capital One. You'll see all the action starting at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific on ABC, and then we'll close it out at 5 Eastern on ESPN2. Now, tomorrow, we're going to kick it off right over on ESPN2 with pole day qualifications. We'll try and put 22 cars into the field starting at noon Eastern, and again, 6 Eastern Time. For Scott Goodyear, Rusty Wallace, Jack Arute, Jerry Punch, Jamie Little, and Vince Welch, especially those 4 pit reporters and all of our crew, you guys did great out there. It was awfully cold out there with that cold, damp rain. Thank you guys for all your hard work today and everybody for staying with us. And so tune in tomorrow at, we told you, as ABC is online at ESPN.com. Search ABC Sports. Coming up next is World News Tonight, or your local news, except on the West Coast. Thanks so much for watching. This is Marty Reid. We'll see you tomorrow over on ESPN2.